Hey, Brian Boyle here, and welcome to episode 186 of The Mesh Tongue. Today, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about kind of VO2 max, some training, why the 5K is important. But this is always this kind of crazy time of the year, right? We're heading into cross country nationals for the collegiate race this weekend. It's high schools, kind of states already been over. A lot of folks are done with their fall marathons and such. It's one of those deals where this is kind of like the break time. If you've been through this long macro cycle training through the summer and the fall, hitting this Thanksgiving point, I can't help but always kind of figure out that this time of the year is the time that my body was starting to shut down. We'd hit nationals and then go on. I'd finish my marathon and go on. Coaching clients right now, we're kind of in this transition phase where we're taking them from kind of this, ramp up, and now we're going to go into this little bit of a valley, take a little break, get a much needed rest, and then kind of ramp back up. But what I've noticed is that people are, sometimes wanting to push through this time. They want to stay, I want to stay and I want to maintain my pace. I want to maintain the miles. I want to maintain that. So I would recommend that even if you don't want to cut back completely, that you would at least cut back considerably. Maybe to the point of 50% cut back, and then we kind of ramp back up. Again, obviously this is going to be dependent on how much you're running to begin with. So somebody that's running 120 miles versus somebody that's running maybe only 20 miles a week, may not need as much of a ramp down with the 20 miles a week as opposed to the person that's running 120 to 150. But we throttle it down. And again, the reason being is that this is the time of year that you can do that. There's not really much going on. Yes, I understand some folks say, well, I've got Boston coming up. I don't want to necessarily throttle it down. However, if you've just raced a complete marathon, unless you're at the upper echelon of training and your body can handle it, more than likely, this is the time of the year that you're going to actually want to try and decrease that mileage, get a little rest, and then build the legs back up. But what I want to talk to you today about is the difference between kind of VO2 max, lactate threshold, and running economy. So a good reference book for this is the Jack Daniels book. All right, the running formula is a phenomenal reference book for this. In there, Dr. Daniels talks about VO2 max, why it's important, kind of the lactate threshold. If you're not using the 5K currently as one of your time trials or race predictors, I would highly encourage you to do so. Okay, and the reason being is that a lot of things can come out of a 5K race. So I know some people have said, they're a dime a dozen, or if you look at the race trends, 5Ks across the board are down unless they've got some theme with them, whether they're the wine 5K or they're a midnight 5K, whatever it may be. 5Ks across the board they're just down. They're not seemingly in vogue right now. That the half marathon and the marathon are more in line with what a lot of people are going to. It's more of a challenge. People say, anybody can run a 5K, but not anybody can run a marathon, and so on. But the reality is that the 5K, if you use that 5K as your time trial and as your way to kind of gauge your success, I think you're going to be really, really satisfied with how your outcomes are at the end of whatever your training season is. Okay, whether it's track, whether it's marathon, half marathon, whatever it may be, 10K, 5K. So the reason being, okay, if we look across the board at running economy and VO2 max, so running economy basically is the ability to use oxygen based on your body weight at a particular speed. Okay, so if you're able to, at starting off, you're able to use 55 milliliters of oxygen, to run a 6-minute mile, and then you're able to decrease that to say 48 milliliters of oxygen, okay, at kind of the same speed, then you have basically achieved better running economy. Okay, you waste less energy to go the same distance. So now your 6-minute miles are easy. Okay, because you're not consuming as much oxygen, you don't have to have as much energy expenditure. Okay, and how do you increase running economy is through repetition. So repetition is classified as something that is above the 5K race pace. So if we're thinking about 98 to 100% of VO2 max, where you're actually consuming oxygen. It's no longer into the anaerobic, so it's just under that anaerobic where you're not using oxygen. Think about sprinting and all-out sprint. That is lactate threshold training. That's hard, but it's not ridiculous. Okay, it's not ludicrous speed, as they say in Spaceballs. But what you would look at is for the repetition or the race pace for the particular race that you're going to run. Okay, that's going to be a little bit harder. It's going to be a little bit faster. You may go into that anaerobic where you're huffing and puffing and your body just can't consume any more oxygen. Okay, that's where the repetition is going to increase your form, and it's also going to increase your ability to reduce the amount of oxygen that your body requires in order to go at that same energy level or an energy output. So when we're looking at running economy and we say, well, all right, well, how do we increase that? So that's where you're going to do the repetitions. So anything below that, all right, is where you're going to make changes to the body and your conditioning level, but you may not have a faster race based on that. Okay, based on lactate threshold and or kind of some of the other training that's out there, your long, slow distance, your LSDs, and or even your interval pace. Okay, because that sometimes is just going to train the body just to kind of get the feel what you're feeling, understanding what a 75-second 400 feels like, or a 63-second 400, or a 90-second 400, whatever that may be, but. This also comes into play when somebody says, well, I have a 90 VO2 max, okay, compared to the person that has the 70 VO2 max, all right? If somebody has a 90, all right, VO2 max, you would think that they are off the charts. This is, kind of the sub 4-minute milers, and yet there's lots of people that test out at a 40, at a 90 VO2 max, which could be a good 40% higher than somebody else, and yet still not perform as well because of the fact that they may have poor running economy, okay, so their oxygen uptake, so even though their VO2 max is testing out at this on a treadmill, and their body's able to consume this, they just may not be able to perform because of running economy. The other reason, as Dr. Daniels has said, is the lack of determination and or lack of guts, which I love. Okay, it could just be that somebody doesn't want to push themselves into that kind of that beyond comfortable race pace, if you will, and into what we'd like to consider as ludicrous speed. So hopefully you find some value in this. I highly recommend the 5K race to kind of stage that. Again, in order to increase your running economy, I would increase your repetitions. And then with the repetitions, again, you're going to use those a little less frequently, but you're going to use those so that you're increasing your running form at a much faster pace than you would be. So it is a fast pace. It's not comfortable, hard, okay, where it's not just kind of this repetition pace of maybe a slower pace, and you're just going at it just to say, okay, can I just maintain this pace? This is where you're literally going hard after it, and you're trying to go into that anaerobic stage in order to train the body to be able to use less oxygen at the same pace, same same other variables. So if you find value in this, please share this with your friends, your family, your training partners. You can always email me at Brian, BRIAN, at company5k, that's the number 5k.com. I'll be happy to get back to you as soon as possible, and as always, I appreciate you being here. Until next time.